Well, welcome to episode 2 of the Indie Music Blast with Senator Jez. I guess you stuck around. Well, in today's episode, we're going to have another release. Much like last episode, it's not a new release. It's just one that from last year that I really want to get out there to you guys. And for our second segment, I'm going to talk about one of the issues that I find that I am encountering a lot in the local and worldwide indie music scene when I talk to other indie artists. And that is the 3 R's. And I'll get into that later. First, building a YouTube channel is hard, and I'm starting brand new with this one. I have my main channel, but I wanted this one to be just focused on the Indie Music Blast. So if you could help out a guy like me, right under here in the subscribe, just click that. Maybe click the bell so you know when we have new episodes out. That would be a big help, and I would appreciate it and appreciate you forever. Let's get into the release of the day. All right, so today's release is Formative Years by the Pie Face Girls, a local Raleigh punk act. Maybe you could classify them as garage. It's a trio, power trio at that. Is Danny, Tiffany, and Clay on guitar, bass, and drums. And I tell you, this album kicks. I actually met the Pie Face Girls last year at Moogfest. It was a brief meeting. We were all in the green room waiting for the press interviews, and they were there, and I talked to them. I instantly liked them. Now, their music is kind of charged politically. They're activists, but they keep a very own sense of humor. I don't like necessarily comparing certain bands to other artists because sometimes people take it the wrong way. I think we're okay here, though, in that their vibe to me is very much like one of my favorite groups of all time, and that would be the Circle Jerks. Definitely saying things that matter, getting an opinion out there and not being afraid to let that opinion go, telling some insane stories, but doing it with a nice splash of humor. I like that kind of stuff. So the album is 9 tracks, but I'm going to focus on 3 tracks that I particularly find my favorites on the album. You may be wondering why you're not hearing any of this music. It all has to do with YouTube and the algorithm that blocks or flags channels. I just want to avoid that. So I'm challenging you to go to the links below. Whenever I feature an artist or a release, I challenge you, go check it out. Show some love. Now here's the tracks that I think are stand out on Formative Years. The first one is Easy. That's track number 3. And I like this because it has a different vibe than the rest of the album. It starts off with a bass line that's almost lounge-like, definitely retro sounding, with some pretty interesting storytelling over the top. And then by the time the guitar kicks in and the song just drops into it, it has a total garage vibe, and it's raw, and well, the whole album is raw, but it's a very cool listen. This album is not for the young. I would have to say that right now. This would come with a label of mature, but it's fun. The next track that I find is standout is number 4, Oh Piss. Now, I said before that I don't like comparing bands, but I'm going to do it because why not? This one song, the reason I like it so much is it has a very, to me, Pixies vibe. Or even more so, take that back, when Kim formed the Breeders. Kim Deal formed the Breeders, left the Pixies and formed the Breeders. It has that vibe. There's a grit. It has a flow to it, though. Really like that track. And the third track that I find to stand out on a standout album is The Runs. This is a barn burner of a single. It has a very rock vibe to it, and it has a lot of drive. This is probably my favorite track on the album. It's hard to say, though. Out of the 9, I like all 9, and I definitely think you should check it out. I'm going to have the Bandcamp link right below here. Get out there and check it out. And here's why. I said this last episode. I'm going to say it next episode. I'm going to keep saying it. I used to say this back when I had the Indie Music Blast on Podshow/Mevio. Being an indie artist is fun, it's challenging, it's adventurous. It's damn hard, and some days you feel like you're just shouting out to the world and nobody's listening. Please support the indie artists. Some of us will always make music just because it's in our blood, but sometimes it gets too much and some people quit. And then the world is less of a nice place because it has less music in it. I always hear from people that they're tired of the radio. They're tired of the Max Martin written pop songs on the radio. They're tired of everything sounding the same. People that like country are saying they're tired that country music is just pop radio with mandolins and violins and banjos or whatever. I don't listen to country that much. There is an indie scene out there, and I'm not talking about the mainstream indie scene with artists like Grimes, who I love, and I'm not cutting her down. What I'm putting out there with these releases, I'm putting out there these bands that are under the radar. These are the true indie artists. I say we because I'm out there too. Sometimes we play to an audience of just a few. Sometimes we play to a big audience. But we're out there, we're grinding, we're getting our releases out there. And the music it's passionate, no matter what type of music it is. Last week, I had very avant-garde composer Petri Dish. This week, I have punk outfit Pie Face Girls. It's not the genre that makes it passionate. It's the fact that we're doing it because we love it. And nobody's telling us what to do. Nobody's holding the purse strings. Nobody's telling us this is how this has to be structured. So you're getting everything that indie artists put out is raw. And that's something worth investing in. There are ways you can invest. It doesn't have to be money. You can buy their merch. You can buy their music. But you know what? You can also talk about them on Twitter. You can talk about them on Facebook. You can stream them on Spotify. However you can show support. You would not believe this, but at this level that I'm talking about of indie artists, sometimes just getting an email or a Twitter message that says that you like what they're doing or like what we're doing, that's a whole new reason to start it right there. It's a reason to get out of bed. Just to know that we're touching, as indie artists, we're touching you guys out there. Well, yeah, maybe we are touching you. Emotionally, at least. So, show your support for the indie scene. We can't lose any more good music. Now, on to the second part of the show. So this is the portion of the show where I'm going to give you things that I've learned out in the wild of the music industry at doing the things that we do. As we get into these episodes, in the comments on Twitter, email abencrawford@gmail.com. Hit me up with your ideas and your experiences in the indie music industry, and we can have an exchange of ideas. Keep each other going. That's important. But what I'm going to talk about today, and I have examples in my own career. What I'm talking about today is the 3 R's: record, release, repeat. Let me tell you about it. You would not believe how often I hear from other indie artists that they don't have something or they need to work on something. Let me be a little bit more clear. They're looking for perfection in their mix before they release a song. They need another piece of software, and then they'll have everything they need. They need a new piece of hardware, and then they'll have everything that they need. Then they can make music. The excuses are out there. Let me tell you something about being a musician. There are no gatekeepers anymore. We can make music and we can get it out to the world. Not just on SoundCloud or something like that. We can get it on Spotify, on iTunes, you name it. There's no gatekeepers. Even that said, the first few things you ever do probably are going to be kind of bad. My first few things were kind of bad, but you need to get them out there. You need to record it and you need to get it out there, and then you need to repeat. My first single, so I got dropped by Mevio in 2010. And then I was like, well, I've got this recording software. Let me learn how to use it to record my music and not just me doing vocal stuff. And it took me a little while to kind of learn the ins and outs. And when I say learn the ins and outs, I mean just to lay down tracks. I had no idea how a lot of the effects worked or anything. But I decided I was going to get back to being a musician. I had been on the other side for too long, promoting other people's music. I'm going to be a musician again. So I started working on my first track. It took me a year to make that first track. And you know what the crazy thing is? It wasn't that good. It wasn't much better than if I had released it 2 weeks after I had started recording it. That whole year of working on that, it didn't do any good. When I say working on it, I was going from DAW to DAW. I was trying everything out. I was trying out plugins that I had no business even having because I hadn't learned the built-in plugins in the software I was using. By this time, I had finally got to Ableton Live, so at least that was set in stone. A year later, I release it, and it wasn't really good. It wasn't really good. It's not out there anymore. I actually did pull it down eventually. But then I got the idea, well, I got a single out there. Let me make my first EP. It took me 2 years to get that first EP. And the reason is all the crap from that first single. I was looking for perfection. If I only had this, it would make it better. If I only had that, oh God, people have so much better equipment than I have. Oh, people have so much more knowledge than I have. Now here's the thing. That album is still out. That is my first EP. That is Dimensional Chaos. It's not great. It's not great at all. First off, I was trying to be popular with that one, and I put much more of a dance-oriented sound to it, and that's not me. Second, it's not mixed all that well. I still hadn't really learned how to mix, but I got it out. But it took 2 years, and then I reassessed things, and I realized it's not worth it. After 2 years, it probably wasn't that much better than when I originally just recorded it. And that's when I started really releasing. Since then, I have my B-Sides album, I have Blaze Artica, I have several EPs, and then a ton of singles. And that was over the past 2 years. And what I've learned is record, release, repeat is key. Because none of us, well, some of us are making some money selling music. But most of us, our music is just that gateway that gets people interested in us to get us gigs, to possibly get merch, to possibly just move to another level. But if you release something today and then don't release another thing for months or heaven forbid a year, you're giving your fans too much time to forget about you and move on to something else. The key right now, I believe at this time, is not to get perfection. Is to record, make it sound good, and then release it, and then move on to the next thing. Because that way, you have a stream of things out there. And your fans aren't forgetting about you. And you're building up a library of music that you can then, speaking of libraries, you can submit to music libraries for films and video games, any number of things. When you go to your gigs, you have more merch because you can sell the music. It's how you get out there. So if you're out there and you're still working and you're working on perfection, you're saying things like, I've been working on this for 2 years, it's almost ready for release. Stop, release, get it out there. Just do it. And that is our episode for today. Hope that resonated. Remember, hit me in the comments. Hit me an email, abencrawford@gmail.com. Hit me on Twitter @SenatorJez. And let's have a conversation about what I talked about today. Or hit me up with some of your stories that I can tell along this line about releasing and building up your library of music. Coming up, we're going to have a lot more to talk about. Have another release for you. My release schedule now is Mondays and Thursdays, and I'm going to go with that, and we're going to have some fun with this. And the show's going to get a little bit less stiff as we go, just working out the hard edges here. It's going to be great. And one last time, remember, it's hard starting a YouTube channel from scratch. If you could, please hit that subscribe down there and maybe hit the bell so you know when we have new episodes out. With that, everybody, check out the Pie Face Girls. It's awesome music. And I'll be seeing you next episode, episode 3. So for that, Senator Jez out. Cheers. Keep rocking, people. Keep rocking.